My name is Joe Peroni, and this is the Rise Above Project. And today I want to talk about the value of never giving up. Now, I know it might be difficult. Maybe you're out there and you've been trying for a very long time, maybe for years. Maybe you've been pushing against different boundaries, including your own families. And maybe it's working out a little bit, but not to the degree that you want. So I want to give you some ideas today about how to keep pushing forward. But first, just because all of your hard work has maybe not made you rich, has not made you famous, has not even maybe made you notable to a large audience, doesn't mean that you're not worthy. It doesn't mean that you're not good enough. And it doesn't mean that you're not an expert at what you do. There could be a lot of reasons for not, quote unquote, making it. Now, I'm reading Arnold Schwarzenegger's new book, and one of the things in it he talks about is sell, sell, sell. That's one of the chapters. And I believe him there. I think that's very true. It's very possible that you can be great at what you do, but maybe you come from a family or an environment or yourself, you've brought upon this thought that if you're selling yourself, if you're trying to show people that you're valuable, that you're better than other people in your field, that somehow you might be arrogant, that you might be conceited, that you might be narcissistic, and you might be hearing these words, whether it's in your own family or your environment. These words do not have to hold you back. You don't have to take that on. That's from other people. So if you do want to have any chance at all of really succeeding, you're going to have to believe in yourself. You're going to have to sell yourself. And this is going to be really important. Going back to the beginning, you could be the greatest at what you do. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to make it in terms of being famous or to a large group of people of being notable. There's a lot of other things that are involved here. So to start this off, I want to give you a small list, a very small list, of people who are not widely recognized for their contributions to the world until after they died. So, in no particular order, number one, Vincent van Gogh. He only sold one painting while he was alive. That's it. And he's known as one of the best artists who ever lived. But he never knew that. Actually, that's not true. He knew it. He knew it within himself. It took the rest of the world to catch up to him, but unfortunately it was after he died. Friedrich Nietzsche, who's probably the greatest philosopher who's ever lived, and he's quoted all the time, and even in modern psychology, he's a big contributor to that. He died penniless. Did he know his work was that influential? No, he didn't. The only person when he was alive that really thought that he was a great philosopher was himself. Although he knew it, he sold himself terribly. He didn't do a good job of marketing. So again, that's another thing to learn here, is that marketing yourself is very important. Emily Dickinson, very famous poet. She didn't know that. She was not a famous poet when she was alive. Her poems became famous after she died. Edgar Allan Poe, one of the greatest writers who ever lived, he had no money when he died. Galileo, everybody knows who that is, but he didn't start to get famous or was recognized for his contributions to the world until over 100 years after he died. Johann Sebastian Bach, regarded as probably in the top 3 best composers of all time, along with Beethoven. Was he famous before he died? No, he had his fans. People did know him, but not to the level that he attained after he died. Oscar Wilde, he died penniless and he was bankrupt. There's many, many musicians we could name. Ava Cassidy is one that comes to mind. She got famous and people were like, wow, how could I see her? How could I go to one of her concerts when they listened to her album? Well, she was dead. Her album was put out after she had died. So she got famous, if you want to call it that, after she died. She never knew that she made a big difference to a lot of people in this world. Jeff Buckley is another one. He had, I believe, one album. The big song that he had was a remake of Hallelujah. Everybody knows his version. But when they were enthralled by his singing and guitar playing, and they wanted to go see him live, they realized that guy has been dead for a long time. Jim Croce could also be on this list. He did have an album out, or two albums out before he died, but they didn't really go anywhere. Then he put out an album that was starting to get big, and he died 2 months later. So this aura of Jim Croce being one of the greatest singer-songwriters is true, because he is a great singer-songwriter. But he never basked in the glory of that. He was dead when he got famous. So I could keep going on. Anne Frank is another one, obviously. The Diary of Anne Frank was put out. She was dead. So she never was able to realize how much of a difference she made in the world. So there's plenty of artists out there who are great or considered to be some of the greatest of all time that during their lifetime were never recognized at all. So what are some reasons to keep going, just in case you're struggling right now? Let's think of it like this. If you are good at what you do, and I'm sure you are if you're continuing to listen to this right now, I can guarantee that you are helping people. Maybe not at the level that you would like, but then again, do we always get things that we want in this world? No, it's not 100%. But if you're out there and you're pushing and you're doing the best you can every day and you are helping people, that has to be good enough at some level. I know plenty of doctors and lawyers and other people that are very valuable contributors to society. They're not famous, but they do a great job of helping people. Second, if you enjoy your work and you enjoy your creativity, then do it for yourself. And don't worry about other people recognizing you. You don't need the external validation. It would be nice. It would be nice to have a legacy. But you only have one life to live that I can totally prove. So legacy is important. However, you're not in control of your legacy. Legacy is what other people think about you and how they carry on your name and your work. You're not in control of that. So we can't worry about external validation. You have to do it for yourself and not be pretentious. In other words, do work or do things in order to get validation from other people or to bend yourself in some way to get on the good side of people. Number 3, you never know when your work is going to be recognized. You have no idea. You could have done something 20 years ago, and all of a sudden, somehow, it gets popular today. Maybe you can recognize that. Maybe you'll be alive when it happens. Maybe you won't. Maybe you can do some great work and the world is not ready for it. So maybe you get famous 200 years from now, and that will prove a legacy of some sort if that matters to you. Either way, that part's not out of your control. It might be something to consider that your time here is best spent trying to reach your full potential as a person. And in order to do that, you shouldn't get swayed or feel bad or feel sorry for yourself or diminish who you are and what you want to do because you're not being recognized for the great things that you do. Just keep pushing. Put out that work. Be creative. Make the world a better place because you're in it. And if people recognize it, great. And if they do it during your lifetime, even better. But you're certainly not going to get recognized or help people if you don't put that work out there or do the work in your day-to-day life. So consider that it's your job to do that, and you should continue to do so. I want to give 2 quick examples of people who are incredibly famous, and they are put on this mountaintop of being so amazing and so incredible. And I would submit to you that there are a lot of people just like them all over the world. So one of them I can mention here is Jordan Peterson, who's a clinical psychologist, is a multi-millionaire by now. Most people seem to know who he is on social media and things like this. In terms of psychology and therapists, he's actually not that popular, if you can believe that. One of the things that he's really famous for with his self-help work, which I actually like, by the way, I think he says some good things. But one thing that really stands out that so many people seem to like is that with his self-help, he says, you have to start off by cleaning your room. Clean your room. Start with that. Start with the basics. And everybody seems to love that. He sold a book and many books after that with this down home, straight to the heart knowledge like that, I guess. Let's talk about that for a second. Is that bad advice? No, it's really good advice. However, I know a lot of therapists. I went to school with a lot of therapists. I take continuing education credits with other therapists. I see therapists all the time. I work with them, obviously, at agencies. And what can I say about other therapists? I don't know any of them who don't believe what Jordan Peterson said. What he said is, it's like saying the letter A in the alphabet and thinking that you're a wordsmith or you're a poet. It's so trivial. It's so nothing that if you're a therapist in the trenches every day trying to help people, the thought that somebody has become a multi-zillionaire that could set his family up for life with anything that they want in terms of possessions could be a little bit hurtful to a lot of therapists because it's such simple advice. We all say it. All therapists, if you're looking at a client who's having a lot of difficulties just making it by in life, what you're looking for is to get momentum moving. You want to get traction. You want to get small victories. And this could start as small as hygiene, brushing your hair, brushing your teeth, taking a shower, being conscientious, just doing the right things, trying to have some type of regimen or schedule, waking up at the same time every day. Set an alarm clock. Just don't fall asleep at any time at night whenever you're just there watching late night TV, eating donuts. Go to bed at the same time every night or relatively close to it. Try to watch your diet. You don't have to be perfect, but try not to eat garbage all day. Try to eat things that are conducive to being a healthy human being. Drink water instead of beer. I mean, just basic things, right? And yes, cleaning your room. Have a clean house. If you have a car, care about it a little bit. Change the oil once in a while, right? Like these basic things of being a human being. Because it's hard to be in a relationship if you can't even have a relationship with yourself, or you can't be decent to yourself. How are you going to be decent to other people? And how are you going to know if people are treating you wrong if you treat yourself wrong every second of every day? So these are just some basics that Jordan Peterson would say. Clean your room. Yes, we all agree with that. But do we all agree that he should have $100 million in the bank for saying that? And everything he says, even if sometimes if it's not okay, that he still gets praised for it and makes a lot of money for it just because he's famous. Let's continue with that. Arnold Schwarzenegger just came out with a book within the last week or two, and I have that book. I haven't read it all yet, but what I've read I really like. I love Arnold Schwarzenegger. He's a great role model. He's done a lot of great things. Everything he's touched has turned to gold, pretty much, right? It's hard to argue against his success. I like him, obviously. However, let's take a look at what he's done recently. In other words, there's a chapter in his book when he talks about how bodybuilding, through when you work out, it's baked in to the sport where you get used to losing or failing. And that helps you be a better person in life because you get used to the failure part of it. I totally agree with that. I absolutely agree with that. I saw him on, I think it was the Conan O'Brien show and a couple of other shows, and he was talking about this. And somebody like Conan was saying, wow, you are just so brilliant. You're amazing. I have never heard anybody look at failure in that way. And I never thought of working out as a way to improve your life by looking at failure as a way to improve. I've never heard anybody say that. And you're Arnold Schwarzenegger, you're a god, you're Mr. Olympia, you're the Terminator. So therefore, I bestow you as being the highest IQ person basically I've ever seen. And nobody's ever been so brilliant to say such a thing. Let's take a look at that a little bit more. And again, I enjoy this chapter of this book. Again, he says, be useful, 7 tools for life. And in this chapter, again, he talks about failure. He says, if anything, when you look at it with the right perspective, failure is actually the beginning of measurable success. Failure is only possible in situations where you've tried to accomplish something difficult and worthwhile. You can't fail when you don't try. In that sense, failure is kind of like progress, a progress report on your path to purpose. Continuing. The beauty of weightlifting is that failure is baked into the practice. The whole goal in weightlifting is to work your muscles to failure, which we sometimes forget. When you can't squeeze out that last rep or lock out those elbows before dropping the weight, it's not uncommon to feel a flash of frustration, but then you have to remember that your failure on a particular lift doesn't mean that you've lost somehow. It actually means that your workout was a good one, that your muscles were fully fatigued. It means you did the work. In the gym, failure does not equal defeat. It equals success. I agree with every word he says in that. One of the other things that I've heard when he was mentioning that, when he was talking about that particular part of his book, they said, you are the influencer that this world needs. There is nobody quite like you. You are special, and you're definitely above the rest. This is what we need. We need somebody like that. We need this call to arms of that tough, real talk. I agree with it. I agree with it so much. And I'm going to show you why. Because, and let me look for this real quick. Let me start with this. I published a book about 12 years ago, and I wrote this about 14 years ago. So I agree with everything that Arnold Schwarzenegger said, except that I wrote it over 14 years ago. And I'm going to say that I wrote it with a lot more insight and with a lot more artistic ability. But here's the thing. Arnold Schwarzenegger doesn't even write his own books. He has a lot of ghostwriters. And I'm not talking your average ghostwriter where you just Google something and you get. He's looking at the greatest ghostwriters in the world. He can easily go to Hollywood, pay somebody $1 million, and have somebody sit down and write his book for him. Or multiple people write the book for him. Now, I know it's his basic ideas, but it's not him writing it. So I'm going to show you what I wrote about 14 years ago and see if it coincides with the greatest influencer that's ever lived, the influencer that we need, right? The smartest person who nobody's ever figured out that bodybuilding is a sport where you fail all the time in order to succeed. He's the only one that's ever thought of that or said it. Let's see. 14 years ago. This is written by me. Success in bodybuilding is predicated on the willingness and ability to fail. Repeated failure is the prescription for success. I didn't need 25 ghostwriters for that. That was on my own. Let's continue. My belief in the pruning process is important. When a rose bush is pruned, it potentially increases the opportunity for bigger, more numerous, and vibrant roses. I absolutely refuse to give in to adversity or tough times. It is important to seek improvement. As a bodybuilder, I know that the muscles need to be faced with an insurmountable resistance causing trauma at the cellular level. This trauma causes soreness and eventually leads to a muscle that is both bigger and more conditioned. I use this quick version of survival of the fittest as a model of recovery for emotional trauma as well. I am not interested in striving for the status quo or aiming for a standard that I have formally attained. And it keeps going. I will read a different part, just so I don't end up reading the whole book, because I have a whole chapter on this, just like Arnold does in his new book, which I had already written 14 years ago. Pain is a necessary entity in bodybuilding. Training causes muscle damage at the cellular level. Soreness can last for days. Training to cause muscular damage can be excruciating painful. Difficulty in walking, breathing, and throwing up can be routine while training for a show. At times, nosebleeds, muscle tears, and dizziness have been irritating reminders of the sadistic nature of competition. Pain is satisfying. Failure is a friend. Satisfying pain and failure is caused by willingly accepting the challenge of performing a personal best. This is the moment for improvement. The body and mind must be forced into uncharted territory. That is where the greatest potential for gain is possible. The term no pain, no gain is true. Those who avoid pain and failure will never see any appreciable results. They will be unsuccessful. Bodybuilding is predicated on the guts and ability to fail and having the courage to overcome these failures. Bob Dylan would say, success is failure, and failure is no success at all. The acceptance of pain and failure as a natural stepping stone to a higher plane is helpful in bodybuilding as well as in all areas of life. The harder and more violently a rubber ball crashes into the earth, the more potential energy it has to sail higher into the sky. Pain is fleeting, legacy lasts forever. These principles have served me well. I can go on. So I think you get my point. Is that Arnold is all those things, but it's been written before. It's been said before. It's been written and said better, more insightful, and more artistic before. But his fame leads people to think that he's some type of god, but he's just a human. So let me finish with this, because we're at 23 minutes already. Back to the beginning. Never give up. No matter what. If you get famous or not, you get rich or not, if your own family and friends don't recognize you, or people outside your family and friends recognize you or not, it makes no difference. You want to go back to school? You go back to school. You want to write that book? You write that book. You want to write that song? You write that song. Do what you want to do. Do the best you can. Try to reach your full potential. Be internally validated. Do it for yourself. And if you get external validation while you're alive, great. You get to see it, and you get to be among other people who think like you. And you can see who you've helped. But most of the time, probably not. You're probably going to help a lot of people that you will never know, you will never see, you'll never know their name. But who cares? Do your job, be yourself, don't give up. Hopefully some of that was valuable for you today. I use the word valuable all the time. I've been using that word on all these shows since 2010 when I started doing these shows, Arnold says be useful. I'm sure because he's famous, the term useful is better than valuable now. Whatever. Hopefully this has been useful and valuable for you. My name is Joe Prony. This is the Rise Above Project. Please subscribe and tell a friend. Thank you.